So nice to talk to you. Can you tell everybody today a little bit about yourself, how you got into flower essences, and then also how we've come together to sort of work with this? I'm going to ask you a few questions around some of the remedies that you've put together so magically, and we've paired up with the rings so that people can sort of integrate what they're working with the rings. So over to you.
Yeah, hello, thank you. So, I am Abby, and my I guess business, my brand is Heka Healing. So I work with flower essences, which are a vibrational medicine to support emotional well-being and emotional healing. And I have been doing this for around 4 years now, and I got into this. Well, I actually been using flower essences since I was 7. Um, and yeah, they've just come really naturally into my life and felt an affinity for them from the very beginning of intentionally working with them. But yeah, I think in the current sort of world and state of the world we're living in, this really is a medicine for the future and a medicine for collective healing. So it enables us to really radically shift our own internal experience that then flows out into the collective as we know. So it is, I guess, it's powerful because it offers us a um, really holistic state of healing and a really holistic experience to healing that kind of unfolds quite rapidly. We get to experience real time shifts and we get to witness, you know, a different, I guess, level of reality than we previously have been. So accompanying them with the tools that you work with as well, Cherie, just seems like a natural fit, doesn't it? So they really are a beautiful medicine for integration. So to be able to use them in this way to integrate the healing with other tools is so perfect because the more we can use together with vibrational medicine, the more rapid that shifting and healing takes place. So yeah, that is what we're doing here.
Yeah, and for me, I see it as the growing the emotional intelligence of humanity, right? Where
Mhm.
we're sort of stuck in a lot of paradigms, a lot of old belief systems, programs, things that don't serve us anymore, and people are really hungry to transcend the limitations that they've picked up through what they've had to experience, and we're developing, moving into developing the new way of doing things, and not so much focused on the old. So that's where this rapid transition needs to come in. So I'm actually working with Slim Sperling's copper tensor energy tools. So they work on many different levels, like the flower essences do. And for me, I found that they needed, for people that are not being coached or not being held accountable and or held with care and love and respect and honor, and having that witnessing going on while they're going through their transition. It's a very good reason to work with the flower essences because they're so gentle, they're so compassionate. They have that, they're very tuned in to the emotional aspect of us. So let's start with we got together, didn't we? And we paired up some beautiful blends that you've put together. So I want to talk to you and ask you about the first one, and that is boundaries. So you put together a blend called Boundaries, and we felt that that would go really well with the sacred royal ring, which is, from my aspect, very much about the physical body, the structural integrity of the body, and the mechanical function of the body. So anything that is going on with the body that's very densely manifest in matter, that is sort of really the last stage of the step down process of how we manifest a physical sign of a disease or dis-ease, right? So
Mm.
could you talk a little bit about what boundaries is, how you put it together, and why it goes so well with this ring?
Yeah, for sure. So, um, as you speak to the sort of physical kind of manifestation of these symptoms being that last step down, boundaries is kind of like the first layer of healing, right? So boundaries is removing the energetic distortion that is in the way of us actually being in connection with our physical body. And so the energetic distortion where it has originally sort of impacted us is where that physical manifestation originally begins, right? So in order to heal that, in order to understand that, we need to then first create an environment and a space in ourselves where we're actually in touch with that physical state, and we're actually understanding why and how these physical manifestations have come to be in the first place. And we do that through creating energetic boundaries and energetic clearing, and a state of self sovereignty, so that we can then look at ourselves and also be in our own energy. So we have the power and the ability to actually work on those levels. So the boundaries is. Yeah, the other end of the spectrum of where it all begins, right? So, within the boundaries remedy, there is a essence called River Bottle Brush, and so this is for energetic protection. There is fringed violet. So this is actually for repairing our energetic field from any distortion that has taken place, or any breaks, or anything that is interfering with our energetic field. So only when we kind of restore that to its natural state can we then begin to actually work on ourselves, right? So it also has coffee essence in it, which is for this reconnection and kind of embodiment into all of our being. It also has wild tobacco bush, which is for grounding and discernment. So, actually, really understanding what is ours and what belongs to someone else, or what is meant for us as well. And it also has poinciana, which is for awareness of how we're sort of playing into these distortions as well. And then peach blossom tea tree, which is self authority as well, and taking responsibility for our own state of being. So that is the boundaries remedy in a nutshell, and that is why I've paired it with the royal.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I find that people very much are tuned into working on their physical body. It's what the sort of medical paradigm really get us to focus on,
Mm,
and people wanting to shift things, they need sort of a real, a really strong anchor within themselves to find their own balance, their own strength, their own inner connection. Like you said, I want to share something very quickly that had it came up for me just a few days ago. I had an experience where I had a very unpleasant interaction with a woman who was very forceful, aggressive, very one-sided. Wasn't very good at communicating, even though I tried, and I was trying to really bring this back to a harmony state, but I just couldn't. And so I went home from this experience, rocked to my core, angry, absolutely so frustrated that I wasn't listened to. I could just feel my body immediately start to manifest. Pretty much came through as it started to solidify in my body. It came in through sciatic pain, and
mm,
just feeling like I was coming down with something, maybe a little bit headachy, just, but it was really clear that it was in my body, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And then I knew that it was stress related. I knew it was related to this incident, And so what I did is I grabbed one of the royal sacred rings because it was physical. I could feel it in my body. So I grabbed one of these. I put it at the back, tucked it in the back of my jeans, put one at the front, and then luckily, Abby, I had your boundaries, and I took my first 7 drops of that. I hadn't taken it before, so it was just the start of it. And immediately, it was almost immediately, I felt the sense of relief. And
Mm.
then, probably within about 15 minutes to half an hour, there was just no pain left in my body. There was no discomfort. I was like, wow, am I just imagining it, or has it really gone? And I sort of wriggled around and it was like, went for a walk, and I'm like, yeah, it's just not there. So it was so powerful. It was so instantaneous. It was remarkable. So
Yeah,
I wanted to share that. It was really great.
beautiful. So good. I love it. I love it.
Energetic protection and embodiment.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like for me with this sort of righteous bullying experience. It came through of like, no, I don't need to put up with this and tolerate this. Whereas maybe my spiritual friendly side would say, oh, maybe I've attracted this into my experience to
Mm,
learn something and all the rest of it. Sometimes we do, but
mm,
sometimes we're also a catalyst for other people and a mirror for other people for them to actually have a look at themselves. So
mm,
not to take it on all the time and to make it always about us, but to go, okay, maybe this woman needs some self-reflection, and maybe I don't need to bring that in and make it my stuff and always about me. So that's where I felt this energetic protection just completely come in, and me just to stand in the firmness of my boundary and embody what needs to happen for me going forward with, what I was doing, there. So,
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because I think also, when we do feel ourselves taking on that state of, what is it that I've done, or what lesson am I getting taught here, or whatever it may be, right? Where that can be us going into a state of our own fears, of our own sort of insecurities, of our own tendencies to kind of fall back into the victim, right?
And people please, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
people please.
Absolutely. And Poinciana that's in boundaries is like the essence for people pleasing. So, and it is, so it's like when we understand our own energy is when we can be embodied, because I don't think we can be in our physical body unless we understand we are an energetic being, right? Because like we say, these manifestations in disease and illness, the origin of them is energetic. So to be able to move through them, we have to understand our whole being, not just the what we can visibly see.
And to the add to that for boundaries for me anyway, I remember when you were putting these together and we were having a conversation about fear and the state of the world at the moment, how there is a global PTSD from what we've just been through from 2020 and going forward, and so many people are in this state of fear, and that's not a place of empowerment, right? So you put this together for that reason as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's necessary to be able to evolve and to move past fear. It's necessary for us to have these boundaries. But not only that, if we want to experience what life has to offer and for life to actually flow through us, so love to flow through us, we have to be able to be open. And when we are unaware of how our energetic field works, we tend to put up walls um, rather than discerning boundaries. We put up walls to our heart, and we don't let life move through us. So boundaries is the remedy is also to enable us to stand in discernment of what to allow in, right? And what is going to be beneficial to allow in. So understanding the nature of energy as well. So
I love that. Thank you. That's great clarity.
mm,
Okay, moving on to the next one. So we had paired up the beautiful Rise remedy with the Lost Hans Becker ring, copper
yes,
ring. And that ring is very much for mental and emotional healing,
yes,
clarity. It does do physical as well, but it also works with the light codes of our DNA, and our DNA is a fractal antenna. So it is reading code, it is reading light codes, it is trying to read the environment that's around us. And so when you're bathing yourself in these amazing frequencies from the rings, you're getting a lot of light frequency. So, but it will bring up stuff. So a lot of people, when they're moving through the layers of healing, that place there, the mental, emotional, and being able to come to a place of maturity with that aspect of ourselves.
mm,
In the West, I found, me practicing Taoism, I found that it's such big disparity from Eastern philosophy and the way they live, and look at and view life versus the way the West has viewed life. And so very much we don't have a lot of mental or mind training, a
mm,
lot of mindfulness that's starting to come in now to our awareness that mindfulness practice is important.
yeah,
But that monkey mind and the watching the mind, and understanding that the mind is pretty crazy most of the time,
yeah.
and then having the emotional wisdom and the emotional intelligence, to again be discerning, to again get a handle on what's coming up for us. Can you tell me a little bit about why the Rise remedy would be so good to support that?
Mm. So, we rise with the sun, obviously. So naturally, this remedy like does have an affinity for what we receive from the light and the light codes, right? And it is for those who have sort of gotten caught up in those states of the monkey mind, those states of not just like rumination and overwhelm, but also like apathy, when it gets so much that we like kind of, we don't know where to go with it and we kind of close ourselves off. And this is very much the mind, like that dissociative state where we kind of, just disconnect from it all, right? So when we're processing the emotional and the mental sort of states that can come up, I guess, with that lost ring, rise is kind of putting us on a path of illumination where we can sit in that awareness of the games of our mind, and then how witnessing ourselves attach the emotions to those thought forms, and then stepping into a place of, I guess, sovereignty and liberation, where we can actually see how to choose optimism, or how to choose a path past the smaller mind games that go on, right? So it really brings in this sense of optimism and vitality, and also just releases that kind of hesitation that we find ourselves move through when we're feeling all of this emotion, or when we're like cannot step out of the mind, when we're just like so stuck in that mind state. So within Rise, we have Chocolate Cosmos. So Chocolate Cosmos actually connects us to our authentic desires. So rather than getting caught up in like, should I do this or should I do that, and these kind of patterns that come up when we're clearing mind stuff, it allows us to just drop into what is truth to us, like what means truth to us, and what do I authentically desire to follow. It also has sunflower, which is willpower and kind of illuminating our path forward as well. So we kind of get that internal guidance switch on, where we can detach from the mind again, move, kind of allow ourselves to feel the emotion, but not be attached to the emotion as well. Allow that to flow, and kind of have that that confidence in where we're going, that clarity in where we're going, and that willpower to sort of move past it. It also has morning glory, which is really about that sovereignty and that state of optimism. So we kind of allow ourselves to detach from the stories we've told ourselves, and all those also the stories that have been told for us. So the projections of others, whether that's, you know, from our childhood or whether that's in our current experience. It also has coffee flower as well. And in this sense, coffee flower actually activates those light codes in our being. So the light codes that have been like dulled and have been dimmed down, it actually re-sparks them and reignites them. Apple blossom is for joy in the moment, and also this sense of purpose in the moment, rather than seeing things as out of our reach or too hard to kind of obtain or to, you know, arrive at. It's showing us that we can find moments of presence and joy and purpose in our everyday, which a lot of the mind games are this like trying to achieve something where we're not, right? And then it has nasturtium, which is tapping us into our kind of childlike sense of being and state of being, and this open-mindedness and sort of possibility of everything, right? Which again detaches us from the mind and sits us in that place of like awe and wonder and curiosity as well. So it really helps us shape our perception of what's going on in our experience, and dropping the stories and the sort of the mind games that play into our daily, you know, existence. So that's the remedy rise that we've placed together with the lost ring.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know in the West we've got access to so much information. In fact, we're drowning in a sea of it. Big part of that information is becoming successful, both, you know, from a wealth point of view, and you know, rising to the top as an entrepreneur. And you know, women are very empowered these days to do everything, pretty much too much. And not just women, I mean men as well. There's the pressure there as well. And my feeling is also, you know, this whole, you know, having to um, you know, reach your purpose and your passion, and have success and this and that. And it's so overwhelming for a lot of people that coming back to the grassroots mundane world, which is where a lot of our time is spent, is very uncomfortable for people, and they think they're doing something wrong, because we all have to face the mundane. But that old saying, you know, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It is the mundane where we still have to get up and do dishes and washing and cooking and, you know, feeding ourselves and all the rest of it. And, you know, so that rise is all about, you know, doing it in a way that's sustainable, that's not grand, like that we're living in this grandiose fantasy that we should be somewhere else, but we're here in this mundane. And I think that's the other important thing with boundaries and then going into rise, is to anchor us into the fact that we've still got to live our everyday lives,
Mm,
right? So I like the fact that it is allowing us to, you know, uh, process our all of our emotions, our beliefs, our perceptions, all of, you know, and process, you know, the bits that are real, the bits that aren't real, or every layer of it. So it's a beautiful blend to put together, Abby. You've done so well with that.
yeah.
Um,
And the apple
so
blossom really is like the magic in the mundane. That brings forth the magic in the mundane. So we actually, and most of the essences within this remedy as well kind of have that effect. And it just allows us to actually see how much we miss in our days because we are searching for what's ahead of us or what's more, right? It's not just like this, I guess, shift in perception of like how something should fill us up, but it's actually bringing us back to the present and going like, no, like, look, this is actually how much you have here, right? Um, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so the next one that we have on the list is trust, and we've paired that up with the empowerment ring. So the empowerment ring, the larger of the four, for me is the understanding of that ring is that it's very much your connection to your higher self, the connection to your bringing through the higher wisdom and the development of your divine superpowers, your spiritual faculties, your intuition, your telepathy, that the things that we don't get taught a lot of, particularly here in the West, but it's coming online for a lot of people, and they know that there's reconnection that they need to make to something that's beyond themselves. And whether they do it from they're trying to do it from a religious perspective or a spiritual perspective or whatever perspective it is, it doesn't matter which doorway you go in. There's many doorways to this, but we do know and sense this innate sort of power that we have within us, but we don't know what to do with and maybe even afraid of. So you put together trust. Can you talk to us about that trust remedy and how you put it together?
Yeah, for sure. So to cultivate trust, really, we first need this sense of um, boundaries and an awareness of our energy body, right? Which is our interconnection with all other. And then we need this sense of presence, right? Which is what we get from Rise, this presence in the moment in our everyday. And then when we move to trust, we have those established tools that we require to be able to then cultivate that sense of trust, right? And that trust is an interconnection with something larger than ourselves. So that trust is a connection to our intuitive abilities, right? Our psychic abilities. And all that our intuitive and psychic abilities are a connection to what is outside of our physical self and our energetic being as we feel it right here, right? So it is basically our connection to nature. And when we are able to attune to nature, we kind of get this more expansive picture and kind of intelligence and awareness of the universe, and that there's so much more out there than just ourselves, right? So we become this empowered being, right? Because we see that actually possibility is limitless because we are nature. Nature is us. There are no sort of limits in nature. It flows and it cycles and it regenerates. There's no death that is final. It's always regenerating, always renewing, and it has the power to kind of cultivate anything within it, right? So when we attune to our interconnection with all else, we are attuning to the most empowered state that we have, right? And so trust, the remedy trust, helps us cultivate this connection. It helps us trust. Trust is the I guess the gateway to being able to tap into this connection, right? It's once we're able to cultivate that trust, we open ourselves up to that. So the only thing that sort of gets us in the way of these kind of abilities to connect to spirit, to connect to our higher self, to connect with the divine is a state of fear or limitation. So trust, it tunes us to nature, to the divine, to our soul, our higher self. So it has bush iris in it, which is this really holistic state of universal trust and divine guidance that it taps us into. So it kind of connects us. It connects our antenna to the divine, right? Port wine magnolia, which is this, I guess, self permission to just authentically be us and sit in our truest self, which when we're in that state, we naturally feel that resonance with nature. We naturally feel that connection to source and to something larger than ourselves. Um, it has bird of paradise, with which brings us kind of this expanded awareness. So, like this bigger picture view of life. So, we're not so narrowed in on this human experience or even just our experience, but we see a more expanded view of what is actually going on, which really takes us out of those limitations. Um, it has Blue Moon Rose, which is um, kind of accessing that state of vulnerability and through that the ability to surrender. So often our disconnection stems from this fear of the unknown and fear for our safety. That stems back from this fear of death, right? And the Blue Moon Rose allows us to surrender into that vulnerability, knowing that we are safe no matter what. And then my very favorite essence ever, it has marigold in it. So marigold is just this deep sense of belonging because we belong to the earth. It's just this full body knowing that I belong here because I am of the earth. And through that, it connects us to our highest self, our soul, our ancestors that are the earth. So this kind of all comes together to empower us into this state of full trust, and then through that trust, this connection to the divine and the universe and all.
Do you find that trust works a little bit on building relationships that can be a little more evolved as well? You know, with a lot of people find it hard to relate to each other these days,
Hmm.
whether it be families that have been pulled apart by certain situations that have gone on in the world, friends, family, you know, having different belief systems. Do you find that, and or you're in, you know, you're in an intimate relationship and you're having struggles connecting, communicating, that sort of thing? Do you find that trust will work with that level as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, in terms of intimate relationships, this kind of the Blue Moon Rose bringing forth that vulnerability and that surrender also works so beautifully on that intimate level, and actually allowing yourself to be open with another. And this also comes into not just our intimate relationships, but into our relationships with all other, because when we can truly be ourselves, we open ourselves up to attracting the authentic energies that are aligned with us, right? It's only when we're kind of putting on a front that we're pulling in these people that may not be in alignment with ourselves. And then in the same way, the marigold and belonging, that sense of belonging, allows us to tap into that same resonance of feeling okay to just be yourself and be you without having any fear or any sort of resistance or any fronts or facades going on. And again, in the same sense, once we can fully embody our authentic nature, we attract those that are going to align and resonate with us.
That's awesome. And what I would add to that is that this, from what my understanding, there is the out there and the perception that we have, you know, our spiritual nature and our, you know, and nature itself out there. But then when you're working on this level two, it's about coming inward as well and actually starting to listen to the true inner voice,
Mm,
not the chit-chatty mind voice, but the actual authentic voice that needs to speak to us and we need to listen. So
mm,
sometimes that comes through dreams if we're not able to tune in through the day because we're too busy, we're not listening, we're not quiet enough, we're not doing any form of meditation to be able to go inward and really check in with ourselves, and get that solid, clear, crisp voice coming through that's not 10 sentences, that sometimes is just one word like
Mm,
no or
mm,
yes.
yeah.
Um, and, really actually trusting that voice, starting to come back to understanding that there's many, many layers of little me's running around, and, the masks that we've built up, and the people, the personalities that we feel like we have to be in front of certain people. Well, a lot of that starts to slip away, and when we start to become our authentic self, that also means we have to have the courage to really make the changes and the shifts in our lives that we potentially need to make,
Mm,
because we realize that maybe some relationships are not serving us, some interrelating, some thing that we're doing, we've decided that we're going to go do, it doesn't feel right for us anymore. We don't feel aligned with it. So we have to have the courage and the wisdom to be able to make the shift and the change. So do you find that this remedy actually gives people that sort of Dutch courage
mm.
to really anchor in the change they need to make as well?
Yeah, I like that you said Dutch courage. That's me. Yeah, no, absolutely, because it's like when we have that sense of complete faith and trust in ourselves and in our own truth, there's kind of nothing holding us back from making those changes, because the trust makes way for us to make those changes. It's when fear interferes with it, that we like stop ourselves from taking those steps and making those changes, taking those moves. So definitely makes way for us to, it empowers us to make those changes, to trust ourselves as we take the step in making those changes, even through discomfort.
What I will say about, just from a personal experience of working with the empowerment ring, I had an experience of, I was interrelating with my mum. And bless her, I love her. But sometimes we clash,
Yeah.
and that's common for us to clash with our parents as well, right? But being nearly 53, I think it's time for me to stop that clashing, right? And so, and we all have our own personal evolution, and sometimes we grow and expand and change, and other people go do it at their own particular rate. So when you're interrelating, that can sometimes not match. I remember having this conversation with my mum, and I got so super frustrated, and we didn't have a nice conversation. It didn't end well, and I got off, thinking, why is this looping? Why have we got this pattern of continually doing this? And I went and grabbed the empowerment ring, and I put it on, and it was instantaneous. It was the awareness that came in was, it's not that you don't love and care for your mother, is there is a communication issue. That's all
Mm,
it is. I was like,
mm,
oh, of course.
mm.
So I just went, and sent her a text message and said, I'm really sorry. The way that we choosing to communicate with each other is not marrying up. It's not that I don't love and care for you. And then the whole thing just ended up resolving itself much, much quicker than what it normally does. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's so interesting you bring that up, because within trust remedy as well, the port wine magnolia really works on our connection to mother and healing that mother line, right? And, oftentimes that can be where fears have been instilled that we've taken down intergenerationally. Not just the mother, but oftentimes the mother. And then, the to have trust, right, as well, also shows us that we are human, right? We're human, but we are also expanded and everything else. But we're just human beings living and belonging to the earth, and that gives us this real sense of compassion for every other human, right? If we're sitting in our truth and trusting ourselves in our truth, it gives us that same sense of, well, this must be what everyone else kind of either is desiring to attune to, or is kind of trying and cultivating that attunement to. So I can just hold that sense of compassion for them. And through that, like, your bonds do become stronger and more empowered.
Excellent. That's so good. Okay, so moving on. The other one that we married, so the arc ring
Mm,
is a ring that came sort of after Slim Sperling had transitioned. And his wife, Katharina, she carries on the legacy of his work, and then other people have sprung up to sort of move this legacy around the world in a global movement, right? So
yeah.
it's pretty exciting that people now, it's sort of trending right now, this whole copper thing. A lot of people are aware of, oh, copper, what does this do? And, they've heard that it can be anti-arthritic, because I know my 99-year-old grandfather, when he died at 99, he was always wearing a copper bracelet, right?
Mm,
And so it's very good. People know that it's very good for inflammation. They know that it works with electricity because we use that in our wiring, stuff like that. So in terms of the arc is the ring that came that would sort of fit in between um, the other rings, okay, and it sort of filled a 33 megahertz frequency. And it's very much about the physical and the emotional heart healing,
mm,
anything to do with and also the cardiovascular system, the movement and the flow of the cardiovascular system, blood pressure, blood circulation, blood purification, all of that side of things. So we put together flow is the
mm.
blended remedy that you put with that one.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about flow, because I think the word flow and the flow of our cardiovascular system works so beautifully, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So flow and I guess the intention behind the remedy flow is really to inspire and initiate that holistic flow of life through our being, right? So it's kind of like we've worked on all of these layers, and then it's like getting to this place where we're actually allowing ourselves to let life move through us. And a part of that is the heart, because so much of our disconnect and so much of our, I guess, challenge in the modern day is because we have closed off our heart, and we have sort of either withhold love, or we deflect love, right? I see these as the two main kind of wounds, is withholding or denying love. So heart medicine is so powerful, and flow, the remedy, is kind of this full integration of all that we've kind of been working through, so that we can get into this state where we are moving in flow without resistance and just allowing life to flow through us. So it has in it Christmas Bell, which is abundance and receiving, and allowing not just whatever we want to come to us, but allowing what's truly aligned with us to flow into our lives without us resisting it. Um, and to also release any sort of, I guess, grasping for what is not in alignment with us, right? It's got Splendor Orange Eucalypt in it, which is for confidence and inspiration, and kind of taking advantage of the opportunities that life presents us. So when we're denying those opportunities is when we are closed off, right? Dandelion is this, I guess I would call it the connective tissue between where we are and where we want to be. So it allows that flow to happen. It kind of is like the river that flow happens through. This also has apple blossom in it as well, which is that joyful optimism. And then rosemary is about bringing in the community, the connection, the like-minded individuals, the kin that allow life to flow around us as well, because we are all connected to one another and we need that to be a inflow. And then King Orange Calendula, which is just whole self acceptance, right? And not rejecting any part of ourselves. So it's just like integrating our wholeness for whatever that is, whether it's viewed as, you know, these darker parts of self or these lighter parts of self, just being all of us, right? So it's really about just maintaining that state of flow and releasing the resistance to that happening.
Yeah, I like when you say releasing resistance, because a lot of blood pressure issues, being a naturopath, there's so many blood pressure issues.
Mm,
And, people get white coat syndrome when they go to the doctors and their blood pressure goes up because they're getting monitored, right? And then they get put on, they think they have to go on blood pressure medication. And I always say, have you had your blood pressure monitored for at least for 24 hours, several times, to make sure that you really do need medication, right? But that to me really is about this restriction, this inability to receive, this sort of, when your blood pressure goes up, you're trying to squeeze either thick blood or you're trying to squeeze blood through something that's really constricted. When we're
mm,
tight, we're tense, we're stressed, we're not relating with people very well. The breaking down of the connection and the communication really hurts our heart. It
mm,
really, and we don't acknowledge it. We don't really get to sort of as we don't sit there and assess what's the quality of my relating, how am I impacting other people, how am I receiving other people, and am I surrounding myself with people that actually I do want to receive, so that I don't have to be in tension and tightness and all the rest of it, right? The other thing too is around simply breath, and how so wonderfully it can release the blood pressure and drop the blood pressure just through a breath exercise. And we all know now it's trending as well, this whole
mm,
breath, breath, breath. Everyone's doing breath workshops and sound workshops, but it's like, how do you make that a daily practice where you get up, like at the moment I'm really enjoying doing my alternate breath, alternate nostril breathing with the box breathing,
mm.
4 in, hold for 4, out the other side for 4, and just having, they teach elite military people this exercise when they're going into battle,
Yeah.
right? I think there was a book called Breathe or something like that way back, and they would teach the military how to control their emotional responses and what they were about to go in and do with their breath. So you can do that with blood pressure too, you can do that with
Yeah.
relating with people, stop
Yeah.
before you say something, stop, breathe. How do I want to relate to this person? And I think that's that whole, building up with these 4 layers that we're working through here, and getting through all the boundaries, the rise, the trust, and then coming into this flow state where you're really able to just acknowledge, witness your own response to things,
Yeah.
and how you're going to receive things. And I just love what you've done. I love how you've put all this together, and how it can sort of, without us being there to coach them. I know you do a lot of coaching, Abby. You run amazing workshops online, and in person, and so do I. Do a lot of coaching as well. And there's only one of us.
Yeah.
So it's important that people can, this is how I see it, is that we're moving into the self-sovereignty. So it's really about the era of self-healing as well,
Mm,
and having tools in your toolbox that can help you move through these things that you need to move through, without having to spend a fortune going to every Tom, Dick, and Harry to try and work out your issues and your problems. Stay with yourself, use the tools,
mm,
start to tap into your own divine inner nature.
mm.
And yeah, do you want to say anything about, working with these 4 to get, just to round it off, the 4 layers, because it's sort of a 4-month commitment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the benefit that you receive from moving through these 4 layers and these 4 phases of healing is that you're really focusing and sort of targeting each state of your being at one stage. And like we mentioned at the beginning, you're working from the bottom up, right? So you're healing in this way that's undoing, unlayering all the layers that have kind of been placed onto us, conditioned onto us, and instilled within us, right? So that when we work through these 4 levels, we end up in the realm of our most authentic state, right? Which is flow, right? So to spend a month integrating each of these ones, and a month integrating each of these ones actually might not sound like much to people who have been like, seeing therapists and healers and stuff for like all of like a long time, and kind of maybe not sort of seeing that progress much over that time. But from my experience and all of my clients' experience and all the people that I know that work with this energetic healing, whether that is the tensor or vibrational medicine, it's rapid stuff when you allow it to be and when you commit to it as well. So committing to the 4 months of doing those different phases, those different levels of self and of the expanded self, can shift your state of being dramatically, and can change your life basically. I know that sounds a bit like preachy, but
Yeah, we
it's
don't have time to waste, really.
yeah,
We
exactly.
we've got to do some rapid healing, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with rapid healing. I think this is the paradigm we've got to shift out of, that things are meant to take forever. There's all
Mm,
these onion layers, and then, the
mm,
onion layers never stop. It's got to keep coming and
yeah,
coming. But
yeah,
what if you got to a place where you really just authentically worked through some major things, in conjunction with rings and the remedies, you're
yeah,
actually going to be working through quite a bit. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
so it is important to sort of journal. It's important to talk about things. It's important to acknowledge the emotions as they come up, because I always say emotions are like children. If you leave them, they get louder and more disruptive. And when you say, "Hey, what is it? What's going on here? Like, I'm here to listen," then then they're acknowledged, they're
yeah,
felt, and they dissipate. And so, like a child, they'll go away and happily play.
yeah,
And I think that's a good analogy for people. And I've always talked about, we've got to do the work from the top down and the bottom up.
yeah, yeah,
The top down is this divine nature of ourselves seeping in
yeah,
through into our embodying deeper wisdom. And then the bottom up is this, yeah, get your nutrition right, get your lifestyle right, get your relationships, organized.
yeah.
And just so many people are in this fight and flight at the moment, because they
Mm,
don't, they're still disrupted with where they're living or their finances or whatever. But
yes.
all those things still have to be looked at. It's not as though that you can take these magic drops and put some magic rings around, and then you don't have to go and make hard decisions or do and take certain actions.
Mm,
This isn't pie in the sky. This is a grounding you into shifting your reality, so that you start to live a place where you're happier and
yes.
you're more joyful and you're getting more joy juice out of life, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's actually, when we work with these tools and this medicine, it's actually those things are all still happening to us. And the healing part of it is that it allows us to see them for the opportunities that they are to come into our wholeness, right? So the medicine and the tools are the healing that they are doing are reflected in our relationships to others, to our environment, to our experiences. This is the where all of this stuff and all of this healing is going to come through, right? And it's just the perception and the way that we relate to it that is actually where the healing takes place. And something that the flowers do so beautifully, and this is one of the reasons that they are so powerful and shift so rapidly, is that they offer us almost like this third person perspective where it takes us out of this really being this victim in this situation or this persecutor in the situation. And as it's going on, we're seeing ourselves in that position. So we can actually choose. It's so much about choice and choosing to shift that. And this is where this work takes place, in the choosing to shift that. So yeah. So then I have SOS, right? And SOS was the first remedy that I ever formulated. And it is this remedy for acute situations and experiences. So we talk about healing our emotions and releasing old and stagnant and stuck emotion, right? But we also need tools to be able to process our emotion in the current times so that it doesn't become stuck and stagnant emotion. So that's where SOS comes in. And SOS has a number of different essences in it, but basically it's for those moments where, we are moving through shock, whether we're moving through overwhelm, where we're moving through stress, intense stress, where we're moving through, we may have some momentary trauma happen to us. We may be in a state of panic. When we are dysregulated and we feel ourselves in this dysregulated state, any moment that we feel ourselves having a sort of reaction to what we're experiencing and it feels intense or a lot to us, SOS is a beautiful ally to have on hand because it allows us, it's got the right amount of essences within it that will target sort of in those moments the exact thing that we need to process, right? So it works on all those kind of acute levels and will target the thing we need to process. It also offers us like clarity and guidance in those moments as well. So not just the ability to process the energy that's coming up, but the ability to kind of calm our mind and find that clarity and that guidance and support in the mental realm as well.
For times of great change as well, I feel like, for those emergency
Oh
times
yeah.
of, say it's a divorce,
Yeah.
say it's a
Yeah.
loss of job, say it's a you have to move out of your home, like those really pivotal times that we can go into panic.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Absolutely.
something's happened to our kids, like all the, they need it, but you need it as well,
Yes.
right, to process all
Yeah.
of that. You've just
And
found out you've got a diagnosis or a really
yes.
serious diagnosis. That would
Yeah.
be an SOS situation, right? I would also pair it with the four rings.
Yeah.
I would grab them and either put them under your mattress and or your pillow, um, meditate with them, take the drops, give yourself a moment to catch a breath,
Mm,
and then really observe and watch, slow down a little bit and just observe, um and then the wisdom will pop in.
mm,
But like you said, it's just so you're doing SOS so that you're not um, having this little ball of undigested emotional experience lodge into your field
yeah.
and stick around
Yeah.
because you've been able to process it sort of then and there.
Yeah.
And it's an instantaneous dissolution and digestion of the experience. I remember I've had two car accidents, and I wish
Mm,
I'd had SOS
yeah.
straight after because then you can get over that shock really quickly. Whereas it took me a long time when I was driving in wet weather. I
Mm,
was really anxious and I was
yeah.
really, and it was
Yeah.
still there. I had still so much stuck in my field around that.
And that's the other thing you can use SOS for as well is, if there's experiences or moments that that you're moving into or about to step into that you know are going to bring up anxiety or fear for you, you can take it as like a preemptive so that in those moments, you know, they may not even then come up for you, or they're instantly kind of digested as they are coming up. So it's really beautiful to have in that way as well.
Would you say good for students that are going into exams and
Yes.
things like that with
Yeah.
fear?
Yeah. Any state that brings us into this, like, you know, or like that, you know, withdrawal or like that contraction and tension, or even just times of like subtle anxiety where maybe we're not sure what's wrong. Maybe we're not sure why we're feeling anxious or why we're worrying, or, you know, and it might only be subtle, but even in those moments, using the SOS can be beautiful to help us process and drop out of that.
Couple of quick frequently asked questions just so we cover this. Would you do two remedies at once? Like would you do like boundaries and SOS, or would you just only work with one at a time?
So, in terms of the courses of remedies, so the boundaries, rise, trust, and arc, sorry, and flow, I would use one of those at a time, but to have SOS on hand for acute situations is completely fine. I wouldn't suggest like using SOS in the like every time you're taking the other remedy, only kind of when you need to take it acutely. Otherwise what will happen is the amount of essences you're taking may dilute the effects of them all, because they're targeting so many different areas. So it's totally fine to use SOS in conjunction with a remedy course in the moments that you need it. I just wouldn't take it continuously with them.
So what you'd say is on a practical level, let's just say something came up, you got a phone call, you felt some shock and trauma around that.
Yeah,
You'd have a dose of that,
yeah,
maybe another dose before you went to bed or
yeah.
something, and then you'd move on with your other your monthly remedy.
Yes, yeah, totally. And you know, if the next day you still feel like some shock or some panic or something come up, still take a dose of SOS for sure. But then, yeah, as you said, just then move on with the course of the other remedy. Yeah.
Is there anything that you recommend people do when they're working through their monthly one? So they're, that
Mm.
this bottle will last you a month.
Yeah.
That they now you give a little card,
Yes. Yeah.
and we have a little sort of summary card that
Yes.
it reminds you of what remedy goes with
Yeah.
what ring.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you really important that people should always remember to do to help themselves with through this?
Um, So just being as aware and sort of present as you can with it, because things will come up. So the more aware you can be of what's coming up, the better it is to allow yourself to process them. There, you will receive on that card that you get with it as well an affirmation. And so when you use the affirmation as you're taking the remedy, it really helps to enhance the focus on what it is you're moving through. So you can change that into your own affirmation that resonates, if you feel like you want to. But to use an affirmation alongside it actually brings through this deeper level of intention when you're working with the remedy. So that is always amazing to do. I would highly recommend definitely working with an affirmation as you're using the remedy. As well as that, hydration is key because this works through our water bodies. So it's amplified out into our energetics through our water bodies. So hydration, and also just making sure that we're keeping our vessel clear. So, not bombarding ourselves with interference, whether that's phone and computer or toxic foods or anything like that, and then also just being aware of what presents. So the flowers work through many avenues, but synchronicities is a huge indicator when working with them. Dream work, so whatever's coming up in your dreams is a huge indicator. You'll have memories surface that are indicators for what's coming up and wanting to be worked through. And then this is synchronicities as well, but what interactions are coming into your experience, what is being drawn into your experience for you to actually be able to have an experience where you process something. Um, so just being aware of all those realms really, and then choosing how invested you are in it.
Right. Great. And for in terms of you've got a brandy version, preservative version, and you've got a silver version. Can you just talk to that and the people that are maybe in recovery or something like that, they'll lean towards the silver.
Yeah, so the standard preserve I use is the brandy, which is a organic biodynamic brandy, and it's minute. The amount of it in the remedy is very minute. You will taste it though, so that's one thing to note. If you want an alternate that is non-alcoholic, I also offer colloidal silver preserve. So this can be made with colloidal silver on request, which is totally fine to use. It just doesn't have as long a shelf life. But if you're using these within the time frame that you're setting yourself of the months, then that is still totally fine.
Oh, so when we're working with the water body, this is an amazing other aspect of the rings as well. So you can actually get a bottle of water and preferably filtered water, spring water, but it has been known to transmute chlorine out of the water as well. But because the rings are actually superconductors and they transmute molecules, so they transmute the way fuel is burned in cars and how electricity is harmonized and utilized properly in homes. With the ring, you can super potentize the water. So you're not only restructuring the water, it's actually releasing photonic light and ultraviolet light from the water. It has been measured to do this. So it's fluorescing the water. You can't see it with the naked eye, but that's what it's doing on a molecular basis. So what I do is at nighttime, I actually get my bottle of water, I place it inside a ring. I actually put the AccuVac coil and the feedback loop alongside that to give it a real boost. And they know it does it fairly instantaneously, but when you leave it overnight, it transmutes the molecular state of play in the water, and you start to see the change with little bubbles on the bottle, and that sort of stuff. So if you start drinking the water, the super potentized water, while you're taking the remedies, it's going to be super, super powerful. One thing I would say is you've got to start drinking that water slowly because it actually has been proven to have a detox reaction. But this is sort of what you're doing when you're working with the rings. You're detoxing yourself from, the body upwards through all these layers, and then bringing in the remedies, you're actually doing an emotional detox. So they work really well together. And what I would say is if you decide to work with one remedy and one ring at a time, make sure that you're using the Royal Sacred always with it so that you're anchoring and grounding yourself while you're working on the other layers. It can be a little bit discombobulating when you're working through say, the lost Becca, and you're bringing up a lot of mental, emotional stuff to be processed, and you're not grounded with that. So the Royal Sacred will ground you in and allow you to be able to process that a lot better. But then drinking the super potentized water and taking the remedies are going to exponentiate your healing process as well. Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do what I do because this is what I experienced healing through. I mean, initially I felt a calling to this work. Maybe I didn't know where from, but obviously something that was divine or unconscious, and moving into this work actually allowed me to heal through all of my stuff, as it does when we become a healer. We heal through all of our stuff, and the shifts and the changes to my experience and the way that the joyful living that I now get to do is empowers me and lights me up so much that I want other people to experience this as well, you know? And that's why I do what I do, because I know that people can feel better and can experience life more fully. So that's what I want to share with others.
Beautiful. Well, I know I do why I do what I do, and that is because I really don't like seeing suffering,
Yeah,
unnecessary suffering.
yeah.
Sometimes we have to learn through suffering, but just the unnecessary aspect of it, it lights me up when people find a pathway to their own relief and their
Mm,
own sense of empowerment. And I think this is the era that we're moving into, right? As I said before, is this um, humanity evolving to a place where we're not self-destructing, but we're actually moving into a better state of play. Not that we're trying to save the world here, but one person at a time. When we expand the emotional intelligence using these tools, when we expand the ability for people to supersaturate themselves with high levels of light frequency, when you come into resonance and coherence with yourself and with others, we actually start to have a more harmonious living experience,
mm,
around in our local environment, in our wide environment. And then we can go on to do other things like group healing and, expand that out as we get, a lot of people say they want to, help the world and humanity, but they haven't done the deep work for themselves. And
mm.
that's where it's got to start, right?
Yeah,
So I love what you're doing.
yeah, and
Love what
you.
I'm doing, which is
Yeah.
why we do what we do. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, we'll be putting the contact details on, when you've finished watching this video, you'll be able to reach out to Abby. You'll be able to reach out to me, and I'm sure we'll do some collaborative stuff in the future because, I
Yeah.
just love working with you, Abby.
Yeah, me too.